South, Isleworth and Osterley and Springgrove Area Forum. My name's Councillor Karen Smith. I'm the chair of this area forum. I do hope you're all able to speak to the stall holders in the marketplace earlier. As it's now 7:30, we'll move to the formal part of the meeting and go through the items on the published agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on Hounslow Council's YouTube page in the coming days. For tonight's proceedings, I as chair will be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. With that in mind, I'd ask everyone to wait their turn, not to interrupt or comment during the contributions of others. It may not be possible for everyone to ask a question due to time constraints, but if you don't get a chance to ask your question, please share it when you complete the evaluation form, making sure you include your contact details so that a response can be sent directly to you. If you do not have a feedback form, please ask an officer to provide you with one. Any officers want to wave so that people know? Lovely, thank you. Okay, so we start with apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Tom Bruce, Councillor Tom Bruce.
Apologies from Councillor Sampson.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stroud-Turp. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? No. And any other communications that people would like to make? No, good. Next, we now move on to the minutes for the 26th of June meeting. I don't propose to go through them page by page. Are members happy to agree the minutes? Lovely, thank you. Are there any matters arising or actions to feedback on? Okay. Thank you very much. So, agenda item 4, we were hoping to have the police here this evening, but due to a lack of staff availability, we do not have a police or community safety officer to make a presentation. I would like to welcome Zahir Kadri from our Safer Communities team lead. And Tara Doyle, the Community Safety Coordinator. We'll go directly to questions and open the floor to the public. Zahir and Tara will be able to respond to any of the community safety concerns raised tonight as far as they're able to. If we're unable to answer your question tonight, please do give it to an officer on the form available and a response will be sent directly to you. Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, gentlemen, there. Thank you.
John O'Brien, I don't live in Sidmouth Avenue, but I do know that the people there are very, very concerned about a recent increase in antisocial behaviour of unwelcome people, public urination, things like that, in their really tight locality. They have a very good neighbourhood and they are concerned about it, and I was hoping that some of them will be here because I don't live there but look after the park which is adjacent. So there is an issue there that is growing. It may well be the result of the fact that in the park we have taken action to reduce antisocial behaviour, and maybe it's just being displaced into nearby streets.
Thank you. Do you want...
Thank you very much for your question, sir. So only today my colleague Tara Doyle, who is the Safer Communities Coordinator for the area, has met with residents. In previously, we've spoken to residents, we've advised that it's essential they use the reporting lines. So in an emergency, you need to call the police. In a non-emergency, utilise the 101 number. We've also done, there have been scheduled walk and talk with the police officers. That's basically walking with the police, any issues that have arisen, they've been answered by the police. There's also cycle marking events because we are aware of these two locations. So Sidmouth was one of them, and also the Grove. So we know that there are two locations which we're currently putting our resources into, and that's through conducting walk and talks with the local residents. Also, there's two cycle marking events which have also been arranged by the police. Again, it's about targeted patrolling, and in order for us to target our patrols, we need to ensure that residents are utilising those reporting lines. Once they get flagged up by the police are then able to put in resources and ensure that there are patrols in the area and increase patrols. So yeah, we're on it. We know about these two locations. We know about the drug dealing. We know that there's been cycle theft from sheds, and we know about the increase in ASB. So in response to that, police and the council are working together. But more importantly, we need the residents to work with us, and that means it's essential that residents are picking up the phone, reporting those issues. There is also Crime Stoppers, so if residents are worried about disclosure of information, they can call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. They won't be asked, it's totally anonymous, so they can just leave the information, and then that information comes back to the police. Yeah, so they just report the issue. There's no need for residents to give their name or any details. It's totally anonymous. But we need to be using these reporting lines in order to target our responses. Hopefully that answers the question, sir.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Lady at the back, and then the lady there. Thank you.
Any incidents that they come across. Well, my street has been targeted by a series of people that are breaking into cars for the past year. Nothing has been done about this, not even having officers assigned to the cases once they have reported it. So now people have stopped reporting these incidents. At the same time, they see that police are over-responding to other incidents. For example, just a few streets over where I work in Isleworth, for a drunk driving incident or something similar, there was a police van and 5 different police cars, which is a bit of overreaction in the views of many. So people just don't trust now that the police is going to do anything about the things that they are reporting. So how can we do something to increase trust so that people actually help them?
Sorry, what road are you in? Heath Road. Okay.
Madam, that's something that we can take back to the police. But again, it's all about flagging up those incidences. So if you don't call, the incident doesn't get flagged up, and that means the police can't put in the resources in those areas. So all I'd say, this is something that I can take back to the police. Unfortunately, they're not here with us today. But I think it's that interaction that needs to happen between the police and the residents. We need to shore up that kind of confidence. Council, police, and all our partners, we work together to ensure that these kind of issues are dealt with and flagged up. Every week we have something called an area-based meeting, and in those area-based meetings we sit with our police colleagues and different NGOs as well and partners to discuss locality-based issues. I mean, it's concerning that you've lost confidence in the police, but all I can do is reassure you that the council and the police work together to ensure that there are mitigation methods put in place, whether that's increased patrolling, whether that's walk and talk, whether that's events in the area, to try and bring about that confidence. So, I mean, it's a shame you feel like that, but all I can do is reassure you that council, police and partners are working together to bring down that level of ASB. Hope that answers your question.
I'm sorry, Chair. I'm happy to pick up after the meeting with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zahir and Councillor Raza. Lady in the pink scarf, please.
Hi there, I'm a resident of the Grove and was wanting clarification on which section you're referring to in the previous comment before the lady here spoke.
If you can pass the mic to my colleague Tara, because Tara does the operational work on the ground, so she's been just at the back there, yeah? Tara does the operational work, she's one of our coordinators. She's had a lot of interaction with the residents and actually working within the locality. So I'll let Tara add a few more words.
Hi, did we meet the other week at the ward panel meeting? Okay, I apologise. My name's Tara. So it was raised at the ward panel meeting, the police were there about the issues about the Grove, and the residents were there and flagged up around the ASB, vehicles, etc. in the location. The police were there and they did take that information away. There has been a meeting with Walk and Talk with the residents on the 6th of October in the Grove. Were you aware of that? Okay, they did meet a number of residents on the 6th of October. They did take some information away around the activity that's been going on. As a result of that, they're doing the sort of 2 cycle marking incidents as well. So we have flagged it up to them. We've also passed on information around where vehicles are parked there. If there's a number that we've provided through back to Colin for the ward panel group, just to sort of disseminate amongst residents to call when they've got vehicles parked there. We've asked the police to actually sort of do some operation around sort of targeted patrols in that area as and when they can. They said they're not going to be there every day. They've got other operations and they're sort of preparing for Halloween and Christmas. They are going to be doing another sort of walk and talk in the area again. However, they are doing patrols, but it's not every day on the Grove. They are aware of the issues. There was raised about a number of issues. Had it been reported, I think there's definitely some under-reporting where people said at that meeting that they were scared to report. But actually, it's even if people say that they've reported it and nothing's done, we can't have under-reporting. It's really important that people, if it's an emergency, dial 999. If it's not an emergency, people continue to report it, because otherwise we don't have that information and intelligence that they need to prioritise for an area and put other resources into that area. So it is on their radar.
I guess what I'm asking is which section of the Grove. It's a very long road. So where do you live then? I live adjacent to Harvard Road.
I think the whole Grove, when they did
Okay.
the walk and talk with it, there was a number of residents.
This is where I was going to come in. So we met with residents on the Grove, but on the Eversley Crescent side, so a bit further up.
Okay, that's not my
Yeah.
part. Okay.
Yeah, but the way it was shared was on Met Engage. So if you want to hear about these walks and talks and bike marking, sign up to Met Engage. That's a really good way to get the local information. And apparently it was shared around the local WhatsApp group, but obviously the houses that are a bit further away from yours are probably in a different WhatsApp group, so if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just add? On the Grove, there was an issue with vehicles which were blocking driveways, and I would request that if there are residents who are having this kind of a problem, that they contact the parking enforcement team. I'll be around later after, so if you want me to share that number, I can share that with you.
Councillor Leakey.
Sorry, just on that, it was all kind of very short notice, because a number of residents had got in touch from the other side, the Spring Grove Road side, and the police came down, and we didn't have a lot of time to inform people. Who's heard of Met Engage? Yeah, so I think if you look up the Metropolitan Police website, go to Met Engage, register. Who's heard of OWL? OWL doesn't happen anymore. So you've got Met Engage. I see Barbara's got a Met Engage flyer.
The lady's just taken a photograph.
Excellent, okay. So the more people that do, at the last count, there are just 60 people that registered in Osterley and Spring Grove Ward, but it's quite a fresh, it's a fresh resource. So the more people that can. Where do you live again?
The Harvard Road side.
Harvard Road corner.
Right.
But my concern is drug dealing and gathering alongside my fence.
Yeah, yeah.
At the peak in the summer.
Yeah, you're Zoe?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, we'll catch up soon, actually, yeah, all right.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Leakey. And do we have any further questions? Okay. Right, thank you very much. Thank you, Zahir and Tara. In which case, we can move on to the next item. So, agenda item 5 is Hounslow Highways. So we'd now like to welcome Tim Hurley to share some updates from Hounslow Highways, provide us with a strategic overview of local roadworks and highway maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Those that know me, this is unusual. I haven't included much on cleansing, so I have stuck to the road maintenance side of what we're talking about. There are a few slides. I'm not going to read word for word. I'm happy to distribute the slides later, but I'll just kind of paraphrase each slide as we go. So, often start with this graph. This is the number of inquiries that we receive per annum. You can see from where we started the contract in 2013, the number of inquiries have increased by circa 60% or so. Currently, year to date, 31,000 inquiries, which we expect will probably be around 45,000 by the end of the year. The fact we have a lot of inquiries is not a problem. It just means that people have ease of reporting things through to us, to raise concerns. A large number of these inquiries will be in relation to fly tipping, which probably accounts for 2/3 of all of the inquiries we receive. In terms of maintenance on the roads, so we have the carriage and footway programme. So this is the works identified by Hounslow Highways through our annual surveys, where we invest capital works monies to essentially bring the roads up to grade. This is in addition to the standard maintenance, where an inspector will walk a road, or a resident will report a defect, the inspector will attend and raise a job, and that will be done. This is generally resurfacing locations that we're talking about. Most of those locations have been completed now. We had 65 locations across the borough, 59 carriageway and 6 footways. It's probably about even with the last 3 or 4 years or so of the number of schemes that we'll do. We're also doing other work, so we're trying to push out larger repairs as well. So where we have, for example, rutting near bus stops, which won't be within this programme, it will be additional. It's what we call the spot defect programme. In addition, a big investment into the borough by actually the council is the footway pledge works. That's 22 footways being resurfaced prior to March 2026. And generally it works out as 1 footway per ward. So for example, Isleworth is the one that we're currently on down at Smallbury Avenue. Probably got about another week to go of that one. And essentially taking out the old footway, replacing it with asphalt, raising the curb lines, improving the crossovers, and also dealing with other defects while we're there. So at Smallbury, for example, we identified a ponding issue with some water. So while we're there, we're dealing with that as well. And then we've also got Albury Avenue in Osterley, which will be up for November 2025. If you would like to know which roads are being worked on in your ward, if you go to our website at hounslowhighways.org, there is a list of each of the footway pledge roads and the date or the month that it's due to be worked on. Other works we've been doing, so this is working in conjunction with our partners in traffic. We've had improved pedestrian crossings at Hounslow Railway Station. Improvements of Banksing Walk, which happened over the summer. Actually, was putting in new wooden knee rail fence, partly to avoid people going into the vegetation area for nefarious purposes, and also an upgrade, cutting back the vegetation, painting the sections out. And then junction improvements near Ivy Bridge School as well, with raised tables. So these are traffic schemes looking at traffic and safety. We also had Department for Transport carriageway works. So this is actually a combination of works funded by Hounslow Highways, but also works funded through a DFT grant that the council's benefited from for the last 2 years. And it's actually 3 sections of Whitton Dean, which I think was well overdue for works. And that was, the last section was finished about 2 weeks ago. We also had various other works, so Wellington Road, South Bus Stop, Ridgeway Road, College Road, Rain Gardens were undertaken, some in 2024 and then in 2025. We also have 45 structures that we maintain within the borough. The premise for everything we do is to proactively inspect. So on a set frequency, a qualified inspector will attend, whether it's a footway, a carriageway, or in this case a structure, to ensure that we're monitoring the condition of that structure. We're looking at what it looks like now, we're comparing it to the condition data from the year before and the year before that, to understand where things deteriorate, so that we target our investment before anything can fail. So in 2025, we've finished phase 2 of Ascot Road Bridge. There's what we call the BCLAV, which is the Bridge Condition Indices Average, which is 90.58, which is a very good score. The minimum is 80. We've also done our work on Strand on the Green retaining wall. So this isn't something within our contracts, but we've been working with the council and essentially doing some maintenance repairs to the retaining wall to avoid any further deterioration. There was a breach in the wall in December 2024, which meant that we had to go in at short notice and undertake a repair. So what we're trying to do is now, we've done an inspection, identify again the areas that could deteriorate, and undertake a refurbishment work which will give that wall a good 20 years life or so. The key step for that was actually weed growth removal, because there was a lot of weed growth within the wall, which was coming in between the stones and breaking them out. So we did 3 treatments of an innovative new solution, which is a heat lance, to essentially cut back the weeds, heat treat them, and kill them off before we go in and do the refurbishment work. There's also other works at Park Lane in Cranford and Railshead Bridge as well. We'll be undertaking works next year. When we talk about the inspections and how they occur, so this is our routine safety inspection, split by the 3 wards that we've got here. And actually you can see where a defect is raised from a ad hoc or an RSI. So an RSI is a planned inspection. An ad hoc is where a member of the public could tell us there's a defect. We'll go out and we'll identify the defect and undertake a repair. So it's a fairly good split. Most of the defects we identify are identified by ourselves, by our walked frequency inspections. But we also, we take into account what residents, what yourselves will tell us if we fix my street, to attend and undertake works as well. Highways and street works. So essentially, there's a lot of work that we do for planning, and there's a lot of work we do to work with other parties. There is a lot of development going on in the borough, especially in the Brentford area over the last 2 years, but also in all the stretches along London Road. So we will work with those companies, whether they be utility or developers, to try and minimise disruption. We actually had requests for 360 days of closures from different developers over the borough on London Road, going from Ealing Road through to Isleworth train station. We reduced that down to 118, which meant that although there was works all the way through the summer, we did our best to minimise disruption over that period. There is still 2 sections left. So there are some works planned over the October half term at the junction of London Road and Twickenham Road. So that's the last section of the Fairview works to put in a new high voltage cable. Then there's also more works proposed, which are enabling works for a new, it's an inspection centre at West Mid Hospital. So again, to minimise disruption, we're proposing that those works take place along Park Road through October and November, but also the section at London Road, Twickenham Road again, will be over the Christmas period. Over the Christmas period, there'll be no other works approved, so that will minimise disruptions over that period. We're also moving into the winter season, so we need to make sure that we're ready for that. Winter officially starts on the 1st of November, subject to weather. So it's making sure that we have enough salt, enough trained drivers, all of our vehicles are ready. We've had some really light winters this last 5 years. I think it's fair to say it's an impact of global warming. So although we only did 8 precautionary grit runs last year, you never know when we could get a heavy snowfall, so we had to be prepared for the worst. Just on the arboricultural side, so all of the trees, the 12,569 trees in the borough, are inspected every 3 years, and that's done on a ward-by-ward basis. So in summer 2025, we did Hounslow South and Osterley and Spring Grove. So you can see there, over 1,000 trees inspected in each of those wards, and 25 and 29 trees have been recommended for felling because they are dead, dying, diseased, or dangerous. This year, I think we're going to fell approximately 150 trees for the whole year, and that's across 6 wards. It's a very low number of trees to fell based upon the inspections. And I think that points towards a good inspection and maintenance program within the arboricultural program. So Hounslow Heath and Hounslow Central were surveyed in 2024, Isleworth will be surveyed in 2026. We've also been doing other things. We have brought a lot of the contracted work in-house, so we now have our own staff employed by Hounslow Highways with our own vehicles to undertake this work. And in 2025, we took delivery of a 7.2 tonne electric vehicle, which is a arboricultural vehicle, which we then had named Woody the Wood Chipper. There was 4 vehicles, actually. I think Grabzilla was the name for our 26-tonne Grab. The Vanisher, and I can't remember the 4th one for the 2 graffiti vehicles. I haven't got it in here, but we have been making strides to be electric. We are the most electric company within the whole of Ringway, which says something, and we aim to be 50% electric for our fleet of 3.5 tonnes or less by the end of this year. Just on the horticulture, so again, I guess global warming's come into this a little bit. It's a bit odd. The grass is growing at different times. It's actually growing a little bit later this year. But we have been maintaining our grass cutting program, which I think has gone quite well. We've put as much of our works program into a GIS modelling tool called Esri. It essentially allows us to map everything out, give it to a crew on a tablet, and the crew can then mark off what they've done with before and after pictures, so we're assured of the quality. Also, it allows us to measure the productivity of those crews, which is quite good. We've done that with all of our assets, so trees, grass, hedges, shrubs, and that's improved. We did used to subcontract this work out, and sometimes when you subcontract some work, you're not sure if it ever gets done, because it's all based upon Excel spreadsheets. The fact that we've now put it onto a digital mapping system allows us to exactly know what has been done and meet the expectations of residents. We've also self-delivered our first weed spray, and we're actually halfway through our second weed spray. So there was a lot of conversation over it between June and July, where despite being 5 years glyphosate-free, we decided to, with the council to reintroduce glyphosate back onto the network in 2025. Again, we've used Esri mapping for that, and we've gone quite heavy on the comms because it is quite an emotive issue. But I think it's fair to say that that is having an impact. When we did a comparison of inquiries in relation to weeds very recently last week, we found that we've received 156 less inquiries in relation to weed management this year than last year. So I think the glyphosate is having an impact. Glyphosate is a temporary measure that we've reintroduced to give us some control back on the weed growth, because we're concerned about how the weed growth would affect the condition of the footway. We have also undertaken trials of 5 different methodologies in the borough this year. So each trial got given 5 roads, essentially to create a good base map. Everybody got the same to understand what would work best. Those solutions include salt saline solutions, a glyphosate light, so 25% glyphosate solution, hot water treatments, heat lances, and various other things. We've now shortlisted those 5 trials, and we've decided that we're going to expand the trial of the 2 best methodologies next year by doing 1 ward entirely in one treatment and 1 ward in another. And the rest of those 20 wards will receive glyphosate. Other things, so tree watering has been a big effort, and we appreciate the support from residents who have also watered their trees. So we still have around 368 trees which need watering because they're in that first 2-year maintenance period. And this is lastly, so on comms, a key part of what we do relies upon working with the community. So that's you, essentially, and the other 288,000 people that live in the borough, because we can't do what we do if we're not supported by the residents, and also if we're not informed by resident choices and what residents know about their area. So this is just a list of some of the things we've done. I'm just going to point out, for example, local schools project. So we have engaged local schools in the naming of our vehicles. Why have we done that? Because we want to approach the younger generation. We want to educate the younger generation about what we do and good and bad behaviours, especially around the cleansing-related items. So bringing schools into that is key. We also have our monthly lay assessor meetings, so that's key residents that essentially want to be a focus group for us. They come in once a month. We'll do walkabouts with them. We'll walk their area and we'll hear what the lay assessor can tell us about their area. We currently have 12 lay assessors. We are missing lay assessors for some wards, and we're more than happy to have more than one lay assessor for other wards. We do have lay assessors for Isleworth and Osterley, but we are missing Hounslow South and Brentford, actually, I think we're missing as well. But again, if there is a resident that also lives in Osterley that wants to be a lay assessor, we'll more than happily accept as many as people as possible. We want it to be a broad group of residents who can help us understand more about their network. Other things we've done, so we have actually, not on here, we've been working with Bronzefield Women's Prison to recruit offenders coming out of prison and helping them back into work. We've also done a blood donation drive with the NHS, so 40 members of staff did a big blood donation, and actually we've all kept up with that. So that was about 4 months ago, and we're now going back and doing our second round. As well as that, resident engagement, litter pick initiatives and support. This is where we give out gloves, litter pickers bags to residents who want to help keep their area clean, which is a godsend to us because it means residents are engaged and taking pride in where they live, but it also shows tremendous support for our staff who are out there day in, day out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That was really informative. Question from Councillor Shaheen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. That was there was a lot of interesting information there. One question I had wanted to pick up on your glyphosate experiment, which I'm very interested to hear more about actually. What were the two solutions that were most effective, and what was their relative effectiveness next to glyphosate?
So I can't tell you yet because we're finalising the report. The way we did it, so Vinci, which is our parent company, which is a global construction company, supported us, and we worked with other divisions within Vinci to go out to the market. So we went out essentially worldwide and said, we want to be glyphosate-free. What solutions do you have? Some of those solutions we previously tried, because we have trialled different things, but we hadn't done it as comprehensively. We then had around 20 offerings from companies from Germany, Denmark, America, various other places. You know, some of them working on big Air Force bases in America. And they presented what they think could be a viable solution using very different forms of technology, so hot water, lasers, microwaves, everything. We then shortlisted that down to 12. We interviewed them, and then we did a 5. And like I said, with each 5, they got 5 roads. Of the 5 roads, 2 would be ASP paving, footway, 2 would be asphalt, and the 5th would be determined by whatever we had. We would clear 1 road of cars, and we gave them a day. And the idea was, we said, right, you've got a day to go at it. Now show us what you can do. We did before inspections, day after inspections, week 1, week 2, week 4 inspections to then understand the kill rate. So the idea for that was to look at productivity. How much could you do with the 5 roads in 1 day? And then when we go back, how effective was it? So that's how we shortlisted the top 2. There were treatments which were very effective at high kill rate, essentially. So for example, mechanical solutions and some hot water solutions, but they're very labor intensive. So they've been dismissed on the idea that although they're good and they're very effective for some areas, and we would use them in specific locations, when you're trying to clear 1,800 roads, you wouldn't get the productivity through the season. So that's how we've done it. I just can't tell you which ones yet because we're finalising the report to issue externally.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait with bated breath to find out which solutions did prove most effective. But did your number 1 solution come close to glyphosate's level of effectiveness? And also, I guess, bearing in mind that this isn't just about killing the surface weed, it's about taking out the roots so it doesn't cause infrastructure damage over time, right?
Yeah. So the 2 preferred solutions came close, and those solutions are a little bit of trial and error. So part of the benefit of the trial, it gave the companies the ability to test it on an urban network as well. So there could be elements where they might just tweak the chemical offering they got in place. So it would be naturally occurring additives and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's worth the trial. So we've established that although it won't have the effectiveness just yet, there's also a lot of factors. So for example, on the day that we did the trial, very hot. That could have an impact on the distribution of some of them. If it's very hot, the solution will evaporate before it goes onto the plants. If it's very wet, then it will leak off. So that's why we want to extend the trials out to say, okay, 5 rows is good, now let's do 40 rows. And let's do that over 2 cycles in a year and then measure that as we go through.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Stroud-Turp, please.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Tim. One of the ones I just want to pick up on, as you probably know, it's something as councillors we get written to a heck of a lot. It's the permits and the roadworks. So you've 4,754 permits, 460 rejected for an outside agency. But the thing we get asked all the time is, why is the gas dug up 1 week, and then the next week, almost just a little bit further down the road, the electricity is dug up? How do you try to manage that to ensure that we don't have constant roadworks from different utilities? And the second part of that is that where we hit the boundary with other boroughs, for us, so I'm thinking in Isleworth as we go down towards Richmond and the 316, Richmond do something, then it seems the week after the Thames Water go and dig up our side of the borough line. So how do we manage that between companies and between boroughs?
So anybody wanting to undertake work or excavation on the network requires a permit under New Roads and Street Works. And essentially they have to apply through a system called Street Manager, which all local authorities use. It's a DFT kind of organised solution. They have to give the justification of what they want and the plan dates. We can't reject them without good reason. What we can do when they put them in, so for example, there's been a lot of development in Brentford, partly in Brentford, but also all the way down. We can look at the time of day that they want to do it, the number of people they have on it. We can suggest, for example, working through the footway rather than the carriageway to minimise disruption. So they're the things we can do day to day to say, okay, I understand you've got to do what you've got to do. It's great they're doing this investment in the underground infrastructure, but now think about how you do it. And that would be a challenge to those promoters to say, and it could be a developer as well as a utility, you need to go 7 to 7 working, you need to have your traffic lights managed with a person all the way through. So if the traffic light fails, it can be managed through, or you can change the sequencing of it. When it comes to larger developments, we can look at working them together. So that's what we did in Brentford. There were 6 different developers, actually more, to be fair, we know we're out, wanting to do extensive excavations through London Road all the way through the summer. Now, traditionally, you might say to the developer, well, you go and speak to the other developer and you figure it out and come back to us. Our approach this year has changed to say, no, we're the Street Works Authority. You tell us what you want. We'll decide what we can do, and then we'll come back to you. And that's been a strong challenge back to developers. Personally, I think developers have liked it because it meant there's been a controlling mind about what they're doing and an understanding about the why everyone's doing it and why this one is more important than the other to minimise disruption. So, for example, the works at Twickenham Road, London Road, there are 2 developers that want to go into almost exactly the same stretch at the same time to do 2 HV cables running from different sections. We did have a discussion about could you use and operate the same closure. It becomes difficult for key reasons. First of all, they're not always in the same place. So one will be running down the east side, one will be running down the west. But also when you've got a lot of different contractors in one space, you start to make it a little bit unsafe. You can't have too many people in a confined space trying to do work at the same time. So predominantly we have to think about safety for the road user, but also the person doing it. I appreciate it's disruptive. I appreciate it looks like they're just going whenever they want. It's a carefully managed system. The one thing we don't really have control over is emergency works. So if a utility says something's an emergency, it is. We have to take it that way unless we have justification as to why not. And they just have to go in as and when. But if we manage all the planned works carefully, the odd emergency closure shouldn't make a difference. But there's always some sections. There was some earlier in the summer down at Twickenham Road, I think by the junction with Linkfield at St John's Road, which was very disruptive. But it's just because of that's the constrained section. You've got a bridge on one side, you've got lanes narrowing. Unfortunately, when that work happened, it was then just a question of challenging what time period they're going in, making them work weekends, trying to get that work done as quickly as possible, and then holding off other diversionary work where we could. We're not the only operator, so this summer we've also had TfL, National Highways do work on the M4 overbridge. That's had a disruption because it's put a lot of diversions down into the section in Isleworth and Osterley. Okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chowdhury, please.
Just a question about the trees that you felled in Austin Spring Grove. Have they been replaced within the ward, or what happens when a tree is designated one of the 4Ds? And following on from Councillor Shaheen's point, because I'm also interested in this trial, which wards were selected for the trial and what's the reason behind it?
Okay, so we have, I say, 12,369 trees, because that is the contractual number that we've agreed. It is actually 1,400 more than what we thought it was, but we've agreed with the authority, we'll take that on. If one of those is felled, a replacement goes in. That replacement will go in as close as we can to the ones that have been felled. There was a policy a few years ago trying to spread it out a bit more, but we've agreed if it can go in the same road, we will do that. Very rarely goes in the same spot, simply because there'll be residual tree roots there, and it's just, the tree will end up dying if we do it that way. So yeah, whatever we take out, we'll replace. Does that answer the tree question? Cool. On the weeds trial, from my mind, Hounslow South, Heston East, Heston Central, and I can't remember the other two, but I'm happy to tell you the locations and the road names. Okay. We identified the roads in advance. We didn't just pick them 4 weeks in advance. We put a lead in charge of each trial, and that lead then had to go out, survey the network, look at the conditions we put down, which is we want ASP, we want a mix of ASP asphalt, so that they could then take control of doing the before and after inspections. But I'll happily confirm which roads they were tested on. Just to be clear, we also then excluded those roads from the glyphosate trial for the first cycle, but in the second cycle they've been put back in.
Thank you very much. Lastly, a question from Councillor Lukey.
Thanks. I've got a couple actually. In terms of the highway works, the temporary closures and traffic lights, etc. I've watched them from some in the ward all the way up to Brentford. We don't see 24-hour working. We don't see weekend working. They might tell you they're doing it, but they're not doing it. And I've reported it a few times. Cadent, the gas people, they put up barriers. They take out. They vent telephone ducts. But again, they don't go back to them for ages. I've asked a number of times for perforated replacements for the covers, so that people are not. One time we had something like 12 between the fire station and Isleworth station along the London Road, and then and I asked a number, and the barriers come down, they get knocked over, they're not monitored. I've asked. Can we put that in their conditions of working, that if they're going to remove covers, they replace them with perforated metal covers, and then nobody's inhibited. A lot of school kids and parents take their kids to school all the way along. We've got about 8 schools between Spring Grove and Twickenham Road. Yeah, so there's that. There's a better management required. At one point in the summer, we had the bus stops were out. The bus stops were out between Brentley and the county court. So you missed two. There were 2 bus stops being missed, and people go down to Brentford to shop from Isleworth. Those locations, 267 bus, 237. There's about 6 routes that go along there. But again, attention needs to be paid to that. That's not happening, and we'd like we'd like better concentration. But Cadent, when they've done their works in Spring Grove, gas replacements, they've been doing that they were doing that for about 8 months, from Thornbury Road up to College Road. And that's not monitored. They wind up the residents, particularly with and I know you don't. Hounslow Highways does not give licenses for parking bay suspensions, but it all adds up, and the contractors take the mick, and that's the most polite way of saying it. And I've had a lot of residents getting tickets because they're not sticking to their rule, the agreement there, if you like, on their permits. There is one more, but I'm gonna. Oh no, trees. These bloody trees. They're not bloody trees. They're lovely trees. But I mean, we had on the green at Harvard Road and the Grove. Somebody thought it was a good idea to get a prominent councillor in the past to plant 6 trees. Anyone without telling neighbours that come out and water them, and so they're all dead. There's none left there now. And I've written to you about that before. If you're going to plant trees, tell people locally this is how we want you to help us manage trees, because you don't water them over 2 years. That's not adhered to either. I'm glad you've got a few people on site. I'm sorry, every time I talk to you, I have a go, Timothy. This is what we see locally, particularly when we're out and about. I'm not looking at any members of the audience either, but some of them will agree with you. And I know you've got 1 or 2 lay assessors in there tonight. But thank you, Chair. Sorry to have dragged it on.
Thank you, Councillor Leakey.
In reverse order, if that's okay. So on the trees, take the point exactly. Yeah, we get hot summers every year. We shouldn't be surprised that it gets hot and more water is required. So what we've done this last year, we started it the year before towards the back end of the season, but we have an additional tree watering crew. So they essentially go out after shift for a couple of hours and they water more trees. Every new tree has a tree watering bag, which allows the water to dissipate more slowly. And there should be leaflets on the trees now to encourage people to water them. I'm not going to say that's working entirely, but it is things that we've done. I guess the question is, can we publicise that more widely? So I'll take that on board. But it is things we've done to hear what the complaints we've had. If a tree dies, we have to replant it at our cost. So it's not in our interest to let a tree die. We also place biochar down on the trees now, and the biochar essentially allows it to absorb more moisture. We also put in tree root barriers around new trees in hard surfaces. So that points the roots down towards more moisture, but also points the roots down away from properties. Because a big issue we do have with trees is trees planted a number of years ago now causing damage to footways. But I take the points on board. We could be better. I guess it gets down to what can we do about utilities doing what they want. I'd like to think that a lot of them responsible, professional companies like us trying to maintain their assets. But they don't always do what they should do. Every permit when it comes through has conditions around that we place. Any suspension of a bus stop should be approved. So when we did the large developer works, and I said we had 6 odd developers on a call, buses were there with us, and buses are very vocal about their routes and the stops and what they do, because essentially they would need to be consulted on any suspension. So they should have been consulted on anything that was done. I would have assumed that there would have been a temporary bus stop put in instead of just 2 taken out. So that's something I'll take back, because like I say, they're not quiet when it comes to changing a bus route or putting in a delay, because when you delay a bus, you're delaying, 50, 60 people. I would like to ask, I'm going to ask Sabir to contact you separately about the covers, because I think Sabir, Sabir Gill, I'd like him to contact you about the covers, just to have a conversation about the specifics. I don't know enough about it, but I think it might be worth a conversation between you and Sabir and maybe him going out and checking them.
I've had conversations, and I've had conversations with Godfrey and various others,
okay.
And with the cabinet member as well, and Councillor Chowdhury as well, in present. But I've seen them elsewhere. I've seen them in central London. You're the business. You should know where to get them from, and apply them. It's just really annoying. Bumping into them and them not being maintained. But that's down to the contractors. That's gone down to the utility companies. You get them to do it. They should know, but they don't do it.
I'm not as familiar with it. I can't visualise it right now. So let me go away and talk to Sabir about that, because it's a good idea. And if we can place a condition on them, and you find utilities and promoters, they are willing to take on improvements because they don't like the criticism either. And the final side of it is we put a condition in the permit, they get fined. So there is a penalty element to it, and they don't like being fined either. But a key part of that is us having enough presence on site to catch them at weekends, at nights when they should be working, and that's something that's on us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Lukey and Tim Hurley. And so I move on to questions from the public. Did someone have their hand up? Lady in blue first, and then from there.
Thank you. Barbara Striak from Osterley and White Green Residents Association, and I'm one of the lay assessors for Hounslow Highways and have been, I think, for 11 and a half years, together with Christine Dywell down here. Tim, I think you just mentioned Fix My Street. I think it's always worth giving it some promotion, and I'm just interested, how many people here have heard of Fix My Street? Can you put your hands up? Oh, excellent. That's good news. But I think a reminder about reporting litter, fly tipping, street lights not working, all those sorts of things. And if you can tell your neighbours and everybody else, because we keep putting it in our newsletters, and we tell people, and we can tell them 5-6 times, and then suddenly they say, oh, I've used Fix My Street, it's really good, have you heard of it? So I think it's always worth promoting, and it's a really good app for your smartphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we take a couple more? Would you rather do it like that? Okay, thanks. So yeah, the gentleman and then the gentleman at the back.
I am the treasurer of Augra. I live in Ashley Drive as well, a resident of Osterley. Firstly, I've got on the trees bit, on St Mary's Crescent, there's half-cut trees there, if you've noticed. Are they part of the replacement programme?
Sorry, what do you mean by half-cut?
Like literally, like the branch has been taken over, they're just cut in half, and...
that isn't our standard operating method, so I'd need to go and have someone inspect them. Maybe someone else has done it, and they're not near a road or...
St Mary's Crescent?
Yeah.
Okay, so again,
Just,
take a photograph.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I'm not familiar with it. I'll take it away, I'll get an inspection on St Mary's Crescent, but when we undertake works on a tree, so we do the inspection cycle, it will identify some works. Generally, it will be a general prune, a crown lift. You might lift the lower branches if they're obstructing the footway of the carriageway, but you could generally, it would be a rounded cut. Occasionally, if there's just one hanging out into the highway, we might just cut that one.
There's no branches, anything, it's just got like a pencil top, and it's basically half cut.
Oh, if it's had all the branches, is it basically like a straight pole?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, so that essentially is felled. So what we do there is we take all the weight off the tree. It's a dead, dying, disease and dangerous tree that's been felled. You leave the monolith in, you take the weight off it, and then a crew will come back, should be within 2 weeks, remove the rest of the tree, grind the stump out, and then we can either replant or reinstate the footway in the original material. So
Right, so it's in the process of you doing it.
Was it done recently?
No, I've noticed it a couple of weeks ago, and it's still
Okay.
there, sort of thing. So,
And the reason we do that, so it used to take us a year to get around the inspections and the fells. Now within 3 months of the inspections, we try and do the fells, and the fell is just that. When we monolith it, remove all the weight and the danger that goes to the tree. That allows us to then come back at a leisurely place with a stump grinder and remove the rest of the tree. What we're then doing with those monoliths, if they're in a good size, we are going to be we're going to be installing them on grass verges which have been overrun and damaged by vehicles. So we're picking 20 roads this year where, as much as we can, we've got these large logs, we're going to place them on verges to prevent overrun and then plant them with wildflowers or something next year.
all right, just a couple more points. The weeds on Jersey Road, it's like a weed jungle there. I don't know when the last time you've sort of put any solution there to get rid of the weeds or remove them in any way. And part of your solution, have you heard of foam stream?
Yes, many times.
Many times, and is that top of the list? Because it's a market leader.
We have trialled foam stream in the past. We tried it about 4 years ago and then 2 years ago. Again, I'm not going to rubbish any other solution. They're all good solutions for the right place. The problem with foam stream that we had at the time was it needed a large 7.5-ton vehicle. It's got a boiler attached to it because foam stream works by hot water mixed with a hemp oil, I think it is. And the idea is the hemp oil then encapsulates the seeds and prevent the seeds germinating. It doesn't help us with the productivity market. It's effective at killing weeds, but because of the logistics that go with it, you've got to remove all the cars off the road. You can only work with X number of meters of the vehicle. You've got to have petrol for the boiler. It doesn't hit the productivity mark that we're looking for, but it's a good solution.
All right, and the hedges on, so where Jersey Gardens is, where you're going towards Nishcombe School, where the Wood Lane is place. So you know on New Wedgwood Road, so where Jersey Gardens is at the back. So you're heading towards Wood Lane and dropping
Would
off.
this be more suitable for an inquiry with your councillor?
That's the thing. It's to do with the hedges. So
It's the park. Yeah. It's the parks. Yes, Lambton 360 will deal with that rather than Hounslow Highways, Punkage. By all means, I'll meet you down there. We'll have a look, but we do report it from time to time, and they will cut. They'll trim the hedges every 2 or 3 times a year, but not in nesting season.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. We were running ahead of time. We're now slightly behind, but the gentleman at the back there, please, and then the lady in front.
Thank you. 3 points. Firstly, I was interested you had done a Hounslow Heath survey, which I think is you have to do legally to check on ground. As it was a dumping ground for rubbish for a number of years, be interested to know if it's clean now or if there are still dangerous substances. Secondly, I'm also interested in the Ridgeway Road works you did, where you presumably narrowed the end of the road at the junction with College Road because it was too wide. How come, having spent presumably quite a lot of money on that, you still ended up with a blind corner? Because it seems to be ridiculous to actually do all that work and have a blind corner still. And lastly, I am actually quite disgusted with the council that it is actually bringing back this kind of weed killer. And one word you haven't mentioned throughout the whole discussion is carcinogenic, and that's the danger with it. That's why it was reduced and taken away in the first place 5 years ago, is because it's believed to be carcinogenic and is banned in a number of countries. So I think you should be going back to, let's say, nature-friendly solutions and not going along with all these wretched unnecessary chemicals. How can you say Hounslow is a healthy borough when you're doing that and polluting our roads? So that's me, 3 questions.
Yep. The first point about Hounslow Heath, I don't know anything about. I think it may have been a separate survey that was undertaken.
It was on your list of things you've done last year.
Oh, I see. Sorry. For the trees.
Just the trees. No, you haven't done the full. Sorry. You haven't done the full survey, which I think legally you're meant to do. Well, to check on any kind of ground contamination.
Hounslow Highways aren't responsible for the heath as a whole. These are Hounslow Highways.
Okay, just it came up on the chart, so that's the reason I asked.
That's the name of the ward. So
okay,
thank you.
So presumably, presumably it hasn't been done then.
That would be come under parks.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, that was the highways trees, the street trees in Hounslow Heath were surveyed in 2024. So that's looking at the trees and saying, has it got any signs of fungal decay? Is there anything with the branches? Is there any cavities? Does it need to be removed or is it healthy? And then registering that within our survey system so that we can look back. That's very different to contamination. Just on the Ridgeways, the Ridgeway was a traffic scheme. It was looked at heavily by traffic engineers who deemed that to be the right solution. If you have a query on that, you're probably better off writing to the council about the whys and the question of the blind corner. Every scheme, when it's undertaken, will also have a stage 1, 2 and 3 safety audit. So the stage 3 safety audit happens after works are done to go back and look at the designed scheme that's been implemented and say, is there any residual issues with this? So you can raise that and they will look at that and listen to it. Glyphosate is contentious. We had to look at the balance of the benefit of weeds, or the disbenefit using glyphosate against the disbenefit of weeds growing out of the footway, causing a hazard, a trip hazard, and also damaging the asphalt and the carriageway, which may then mean we have to resurface that footway or carriageway sooner, and that has a high carbon impact. We've been very clear with the council, it's been a joint decision. This is a weed recovery plan to get control back over the weeds, reduce germination for next year, so that essentially we have less weeds next year and we have more resources to deal with detritus and litter and other things. But we have done the trial, and it's been the most extensive trial, I think, of any local authority on what the alternative solutions are. We've not just picked 5 things, we've gone out to the market, we've looked at 20 options, we've shortlisted that to 12. We've done a Dragon's Den style interview, and we looked at the dynamics and the technicalities of how these solutions would work, and then considered how we would implement that on the ground. But we had to do something now, because 5 years of no treatment or manual removal has just allowed the germination to become rampant. But the investment into the alternatives, I think, is where we should be focusing. And that's been successful. So, for example, the Heat Lance trial at Strand on the Green retaining wall was extremely successful, to the point where we're buying that technology and we're going to be using it elsewhere. So we're not putting any chemicals or anything near any waterways. So it's just getting the right balance for the right treatment in the right place at the right time.
The right balance would be to have no carcinogenic chemicals, and if there are other options that work, fine, let's use those. But I did kind of sense from what you were saying earlier when you talked about cost, that maybe cost has something to do with it as well. So, but anyway, just I think council needs to reconsider.
Okay, last question. I'm really sorry. The lady just in front there. I'm sorry. So if people hand any questions that can't be asked, we'll try to get an answer for you. I agree, but there have been a lot of questions, and I appreciate that, but we could be here all night. We have to. I'm sorry, I didn't say. Thank you. Yes, we do not have time if there are a lot of questions. We do our best. We were ahead of time. Unfortunately, we're now behind time and we need to move on. So I'm really sorry. Thank you.
Okay, mine's hopefully a quick one anyway. This is for the Isleworth councillors, or Hounslow Highways, about St John's Road, and some work that was started by SSE, which blocked the pavement entirely, and Councillor Dunn looked into it, and apparently there was an argument between SSE and Thames Water, and now Hounslow have taken on the work, because it's been going on for months now rather than weeks. It's near the Atfield care home.
Is this the underwater?
Yeah, we looked into this. What's happened? There's a culvert underneath which no one knew was there, which has been damaged, and they've now got to trace it and try and fix the long-term damage. I absolutely agree. It's not great that it's taking so long, but there was something there that they didn't. I mean, London's full of cables and tunnels and culverts that no one knows about, and sadly they damaged that culvert. I asked about it the other day, and hopefully now you'll see it's been marked off and you can get past it. It's not blocking the pavement as it was before, and it is regrettable, and I've asked again this week that they press Southern and Scottish Electric to get on and get it fixed as quickly as possible.
Lovely, thank you. So we'll now move on to the next item. Thank you, Tim, for all your answers and everything there. The next one is waste management and enforcement, and Tim is going to help us again. Thank you.
Hello, Tim Hurley, Hounslow Highways. I wasn't prepared for this. I've got to be honest, I didn't know I was doing it. So I'm going to wing this and hopefully give you some time back. Because waste management obviously comes under a number of areas, including Lambton 360, but it is all one issue. It is how we manage the waste that we have to ensure that the area that we all live and work in is clean, but also that we get the most financial and environmental benefits about what we're doing, i.e. encouraging recycling. So I guess just the things I've noticed as we go along, fly tipping is an issue in the borough. I think that's fair to say. I don't think we've cracked it. I think there's been a lot of good initiatives, especially with the council's enforcement teams. This last couple of years targeting specific areas which has shown localised improvement, but there is still an issue. There is 6 predominant wards which probably account for around 60% of all the fly tipping in the borough. What we have been doing over the last 6 months or so through a Waste Action Board which is headed by Martin Waddington, bringing together Hounslow Highways, Hounslow Housing, Parks, Waste Recycling Lambton to actually look at joint solutions for these areas. Some of the things we've done on that, taking the benefit of recent changes in legislation, it used to be you could be fined £80 for fly tipping, now you can be fined £1,000. That's quite a significant increase for someone placing a black bag out. So we've not been pushing it too hard, but we have been pushing it to make sure that we're issuing some of those £1,000 fines. Big point of that is to get the conversation going. If somebody gets a £1,000 fine for fly tipping, they'll be talking to their neighbour about it. That will spread the message about what the consequences of doing the wrong thing are. We've also agreed a set of posters which will be going up, so rather than a different poster for housing and highways, one poster, or 3 different posters will be placed in parks, housing and highways to spread the message about enforcement and encourage good behaviours. Then there'll be more localised targeting, working with community groups, especially in some of those areas where we can maybe communicate in a different language, or maybe approach landlords, which is a big part of the issue, where we have HMOs and high numbers of fly tipping there. So there's been a lot of work going on. Can I say that fly tipping is reduced? No. Can I say it's not increased massively? Not as much as previously. It is going to be a long game. We have to keep working on it together because it's about a cultural change. And it's also about allowing people to know what the rights and wrongs are. A lot of people arrive in a new place and don't understand what they should be doing. So education is a big part of that. Other things we've been doing on enforcement is vegetation. So if you have a property and your vegetation is overhanging the highway, you have a responsibility to cut it back. So that's just issuing section 154s. It's generally over the May to September season, so that'll be reducing. But also we've done a lot more on crossover enforcement. So this is where people have been illegally crossing a footway or a verge and to access their property. It causes damage to the footway, which can lead to trips. It also is a hazard because some of those locations wouldn't be allowed for a crossover because of its proximity to a junction or a bus stop or other things. So we picked some high-profile sites this year we've been picking on. So one of them is Hounslow Road, where we are quite keenly trying to enforce against it and work with residents to understand what they can do. Also, what we've been doing with that, so with those pavement pledge schemes that we talk about, the 22 schemes, before we do any work there, we write to the resident and we let the resident know that we're coming, so that if they are looking to have a crossover, they can seek to install one as part of our work. So we're minimising works, we're not digging up the footway and then putting a crossover in, we do it as we go. And as part of that, we've been identifying roads which have illegal crossovers. So writing to those properties specifically and saying, you are illegally crossing over, we are coming, you can get a discounted crossover if you want to, but you must cease and desist in what you're doing. So it's trying to use all the different forces that we have to improve enforcement and awareness. The other one, I don't know too much about it, but for example, the grip bins that they have, especially around the shopping parades, there'll be a campaign to replace a number of those, but also to install grip bins for recycling. I like the grip bins, I think they're fantastic. If you live in a flat above a shop, you need somewhere to dispose of your waste. So the grip bins have been a godsend in many ways, at least containerising that waste. The only problem I think has been they've been so successful that we need more of them in some locations. So that's all I have on that topic, I'm afraid.
Do we have any questions from councillors?
Let it be the public.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move straight on to questions from the public, and we have lots of hands up already. Okay.
Oh, sorry, it looks all general to me. Can we have a description, please? Christine, yeah.
On enforcement, I have found that the environmental enforcement people are pretty good when you can badger them into acting, but it does take persistence to get it. But just if I could go back to your real remit on the structures, you mentioned major work on Railshead Bridge. I'm interested to know what you're planning, and are London Borough of Richmond going to pay half the cost? Because it's half in our borough, half in theirs. Hounslow Council took it upon themselves to delist it, but it's now listed in the name of the London Borough of Richmond, so perhaps they should pay more than half. I have, as a lay assessor, raised the issue of the Mill Bridge, which looks very pretty, but really there's so much vegetation coming out of it. I was told it would receive attention in due course. So I'm a bit disappointed you didn't have it on your list there, but I do hope it is on the list.
I like your thinking about Railshead Bridge and getting Richmond to pay for half of it. I really do. So the 45 structures are handed over to Hounslow Highways, and we're trusted with them for the next 25 years. So if Richmond want to contribute, we like that. But as far as I'm concerned, it's in my contract, it's for me to manage, but I'll take the conversation away. I think probably major was a bit dramatic in terms of describing the works here. So Railshead Bridge, I think it's mainly concrete rendering to the section close to the water. Essentially there's some pulling away of some of the concrete. We need to essentially repair it. And that's a preventative measure to make sure that the actual structure is just protected. So it's not significant, but because it's working near water, it's got a lot of different conditions around it. So for us, it's major. It's not just sending a crew to do some pointing, it's something significant with scaffolding around waterworks. We have our 45 structures, we have a 5-year plan. On that 5-year plan, there's probably around 12 structures, and I think Mill Bridge is in there as well. So I just listed the ones that are probably for 2026. But again, we are inspecting them every year, so we're making sure that nothing's deteriorating. Instead of something that was urgent, it would be more forward in the plan. But a lot of these structures are, like I say, they're near water, they're at height. We have to be very careful about how we do those works. This year, so with Park Lane, it's quite a small piece of work. We've just got to take there's a metal banding off it, which needs to be removed, but again, it's over water, so it's going to cost a bit of money. And then MWB Footbridge, which is a footway that runs along the A316. Again, it's not major works, but because it is an ad hoc metal structure near the TfL network in an isolated area, it's going to take a bit of planning to get it done.
Has the knotweed been entirely dealt with at the Railshead Bridge?
I'd need to check. What you can do
it was about, I think it was at least 2 years ago that they started on managing it. I know it usually takes 2 to 3 years, doesn't it?
Yes, and more. I think what we can do, so at the next lay assessors meeting, which I think is Friday or the Friday after, soon, I'll ask Satbir to present on the 5-year structures programme, so he can show you all the structures and each structure has been inspected by a structures inspector, and it has a condition score, reports, photos against each one. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, the lady in the pink, please, and then the lady next.
Thank you. So I have a question about flag tipping, which of course is a massive issue in Hounslow. Has the council or Hounslow Highways considered a carrot approach as well as the stick approach, which I know has worked very well? I've spoken to my colleagues in Kingston. It's worked very well, and providing amnesty days where people can just bring in their rubbish because you're going to have to pick it up anyway. Has that been considered?
It has been considered, and it's always come up every year the last 12 years. It hasn't been adopted as yet because it's a question of, which location would you do it? Would you do it across the borough? You need to, the logical thing is bring in skips, publicise the day and have everybody done what they have. You'd end up getting some commercial fly tipping that, but maybe you accept that that would be fly tipped anyway. It is a different approach. If it was going to be implemented, it would need to be sufficiently communicated with locations chosen which are not hazardous to place skips and other things for a period of time and not abused, because they would be abused. But we have the same conversation. There's one of the most fly tipped roads in the borough is Church Road in Cranford. The idea, well, do you just let them do it and just take it away? It's better than it getting dumped elsewhere, right? It's still the behaviour that we're trying to change, and the behaviour is you should recycle, you should put the waste in the correct waste stream. A lot of what we pick up isn't stuff that needs fly tipping. There is, some larger items, but a lot of it is black bags. It's stuff which could be recycled if there's a little bit of effort about putting in. If it's recycled, it reduces the council's cost significantly, and it's better for the environment.
You're not going to find a bigger fan of recycling than me. I lived in Germany for a number of years, and they got it sussed. But the point is, especially if it's small items, how you identify the people. You can have CCTV everywhere, and you still don't know who to fine. Ultimately, the aim is to reduce the fly tipping in the borough. So if you're going to have to pick it up anyway, you're going to have to face the cost of that. And I do agree that organising it takes a bit of effort, takes a bit of thinking. But did I understand you right? You said it's been suggested and not done for 12 years? Maybe it's time. What do you think?
It's worth another conversation. I have reservations about it for different reasons. The point is we have the conversation on it already, and we'll keep having it. There are benefits to it, there are disbenefits, and we've just got to understand from our perspective operationally. If the idea was have less black bags on the street, then yeah, but then you're endorsing the idea of I don't have to manage my waste, I'll just wait, and then someone else will take it away.
Let's take the agile approach. Let's give it a go and then analyse the results.
Under consideration.
Okay, I think the lady next to the woman in pink had her hand up as well.
Also about fly tipping, I don't know if anyone's been near the overbridge that goes from Chatsworth's Cress into Inwood Park, but that area is a health hazard at this point. I know there are big items that are being thrown on that alleyway on the Chatsworth Crest side that are being picked up regularly, but even when fly tipping is being picked up, there's always something that's left behind. And I guess a huge issue with that is that a lot of the fly tipping is being done over the fence that goes into the National Railway land. So I guess my question is there any coordination with National Rails to pick up the trash that's being left on their side so that we can finally get that area clean and it's not so disturbing? I mean, the smell in that area is now absolutely horrendous.
I'm very aware of it. It's very much near our depot. And it really is just people walking over the bridge throwing bags over. It's disgusting, to be honest. We have reported to the Network Rail. We can't work near a live railway line. I guess if we were taking this, well, okay, what can we do? Work with Network Rail, do it over a Christmas closure, communicate it, depower the railway line, let people in there and try and clear it off and hope that that makes a difference. I'll take it away. Can't promise anything, but it's one of those where we can't do it, they should do it, it's not their priority, they're about managing the railways, they're not about managing the waste, but actually if we could organise something safely, then it's worth looking into.
Can I just say that we had a problem down on London Road by the bridge there, fly tipping on Network Rail land, and we also get it sometimes down at the footbridge near towards Sign Lane Station at Quakers Lane. If you go online, report it, take a picture, report it to Network Rail, you will get a response, and sometimes they might tell you not yet, but it will be on their radar, and they will come and collect it, as I know they have done down at London Road. I do know your footbridge there, and it is a yeah, I know, but I suppose it's not as handy as dumping it by a litter bin.
We do have a few railway bridges in our ward, and they all have similar problems. And yeah, Network Rail, it's difficult for them to get there, so they don't move things as often as we'd like, but we do try to chase them up as often as possible. Thank you. Okay, I've got two more people that have to be the last two. Try and keep it as quick as possible, please. So, gentleman here, and then the lady next to her, please.
At an area forum over a year ago, when Councillor Lukey was in charge, there was a discussion about the priority that's given to questions from residents in this meeting. And it was agreed that it should be not the end of the agenda, but at the beginning of the agenda, after the obvious things you need to do first. That was never implemented. We saw again today the same issue coming up, that the time available for residents to ask questions, which is the purpose of this meeting, is being restricted unnecessarily. Could we in future please move this item to the top of the agenda?
I take your point, but this is questions specifically for Hounslow Highways still at the moment. We're not on to general questions yet, but I do take your point. Thank you. And last question, please.
Question for Tim. This really grinds my gears, really. Crossovers. I put an FOI in and there hasn't been one prosecution, no action since 2022 for an illegal crossing over the pavement. So I think the enforcement really needs to be beefed up. If you came to where I live, in my little bit of our road, 9 people are driving over the pavement constantly. And nobody does anything. I'm fed up with telling people about it.
I agree, more could be done. So some of the reasons, because we have ramped up, and some of the recent complaints from people is, well, I've been doing this for 20 years, why are you enforcing against me now? So I think there is a point there about, it's allowed to happen for too long, probably because it's not been the biggest priority. It increasingly is, as we see more damage to the network, etc. We have successfully prosecuted, it's 3 or 2 in the last year or so. You prosecute under a piece of legislation, which I think is Section 16 of the Local Government Something Act. And although we won the cases, the consequences for the resident were not severe at all, because all you get is recovery or cost for any works. It's not, the cost of going to court isn't there. And I think that's probably one reason why generally crossover enforcement generally is light across boroughs, because the cost of taking the case to court doesn't warrant it. Where you get to with it is saying, all right, well, I'm now going to put something in front of your property. If you refuse to now abide by the rules, and that's where we're going. But then also, we don't want roads where you've just got a long line of bollards all down the footway. So it is trying to work with residents who understand it, saying, oh, I moved in 15 years ago, I've always been here. Why can't I do this? And say, well, actually, you can. If you go through the crossover policy, a number of those, probably half of them, if they apply, they can get a crossover built. But the footway will be constructed to take the weight of the vehicle. They'll do some front works to the property to make it look right and avoid drainage coming onto it. And then we can deal with the 50%, which will never get a crossover, which either should be prosecuted or should have something placed in front of it. This is where the log thing comes in as well. It's where people are driving over verges to get into properties. And people say, well, I don't want logs on the verge, it doesn't look nice, but neither does a muddy verge. So we are doing what we can.
Councillor Stroud-Turp.
Yeah, just to reinforce that point, one of the unintended consequences of that, and I'm sure most people know this, the largest loss of green space in London is the paving over of front gardens. And quite often people do that because they've put an illegal crossover in, and then they knock their wall down, they make parking, and they pave over the front gardens. So I think increasingly becomes important, just for that second order effect, that we should start making sure that some of them are just dangerous, they're too close to junctions, but just that loss of garden space is becoming a real issue in London. So I think it is something that we maybe need to focus on a bit more.
That's why there's been updates to the crossover policy in the last few years to make sure that you in theory, can only have space for one car, and you have to make sure that you have a boundary wall in place, and you have to have the grating to avoid the runoff. But it's like I say, it's the ones where they have been crossing over and they probably shouldn't be, and how we discourage that.
Thank you, Tim. So if anyone has any further questions, please submit them on the forms available or on the Talk Hounslow page, and we'll endeavour to get those answered. So we now move on to the open forum. Agenda item 7. We have received some questions in advance of the meeting, and we can read through those questions first and any responses that have been received so far. So, is that this? Yeah, lovely. I can't read, sorry. I can't read that. We had a question from Hounslow Youth Counselling Service. I don't know if they want to speak tonight. Yeah, okay, if you would like to.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and good evening, everyone. It was, of course, a distressing news to receive notice to vacate Hounslow Youth Counselling Services' home at 78 St John's by the 31st of December this year. We received the notice from the council last week. This is why we have asked questions of the forum to help secure our future. We're obviously encouraged by the swift response from this forum by directors within the council. We believe this shows the effectiveness of the forum, and for that we would like to thank you. We do look forward to constructive talks with the council to secure the future of Hounslow Youth Counselling Service and to provide safeguarding for the borough's most vulnerable young people, as HICS have been doing for over 38 years. Our centre is a safe and trusted space where young people have found hope, stability, and a sense of being understood. We hope that we can work together to secure a home for our services for years to come for the many young people in this borough that require and really, really need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I understand there has been some movement on that since the question was submitted. Do you want us to go through that? Sorry.
Yes, if you can.
Okay. Sorry, very briefly. We understand that the council are working with you to help you to stay at the address now, and there was some miscommunication, and that's been resolved. If you would, please, I can't read it.
I'm going to read out the response that was received to the question. Can you hear me there? Sorry. Okay. The council came back with a response from one of the officers saying, we served the notice as we'd been advised that the service was no longer going to be commissioned by Hounslow Council. However, if the organisation, Hounslow Youth Service, Counselling Service, can demonstrate that they will be operating post December 31st and are able to pay a rent and service charge, then we will grant them a new lease and they can stay in the building. The council and I are happy to discuss a new lease with HICS. They just need to show us proof that they're funded for the next period of operation. We can also write a letter of support. So a letter of support has been offered from an officer in the council. Should the funding that you're applying for require proof that you have a premises. So that would come from the landlord to confirm premises will be available. Occupation of the premises will require a proper signed lease, and that will have to be negotiated.
Thank you.
Just to come back on that, is that okay?
The council have stopped the funding for Hounslow Youth Counselling Service. We do have, it's a charity, 38 years, delivering to young people. We are looking for other funding, but we do have enough funding to pay the rent that they are requiring, but it just doesn't show any support for a charity of 38 years that's been delivering to young people in the borough with over, how many young people have we seen? In 1 year, we see 600 young people. 16,000 since we started.
I understand your concerns. I also understand that we are looking to help you sort funding. So hopefully this will work out. Your service is really important, and hopefully we'll be able to help you get the funding that you need. Thank you. Next one. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask Jane to read the questions because my eyesight's not good enough. Thank you.
The next question came from Vanessa. The council set up a residents panel, which we were told was going to have 2,000 participants. Can we be told what the actual figure for this is? What was the number of responses to the first questionnaire sent out? And are there any terms of reference for this panel? A response has been sent to Vanessa. It's quite a long response. Does anybody want to hear that?
Unless they're desperate, I'd advise them to stop now. They'll lose the will to live if they read this.
Yeah.
Rubbish I've yet to see. It's a Carol Clapperton special. Rubbish. She's an expert.
So I'm happy to read the response. So yeah.
I think we can
Summarise it. Okay. So the residents panel has been established. The panel works with a network of residents and is working to inform the decision making of the council. There are some highly engaged residents who are participating, and at this point there are currently 2,003 panel members. They're involved with the Hounslow Vision 2050, which has been promoted to the panel. This drew over 2,000 residents' response to the questionnaires. The residents panel is a good way for the council to actually engage with residents. The panel isn't the only method we use, of course. There are many other methods for residents to engage with the council. Now that the panel has been established, we'll ask its members to review a draft terms of reference. So the terms of reference haven't been established yet. Those will be established together with the residents, which will go on to the dedicated page on the Let's Talk platform. Anything further to add there, Thomas?
It's not my team, so I'm not sure I can really contribute too much more than that. Yeah.
Okay. We also received a number of questions from Barbara on which are being responded to, Barbara. But because they include a range of different offices and services across the council, those responses are coming in at different times, but you will receive responses to each and every one of those queries. Was there anything in particular you would like to raise here?
So I wasn't at the 26th of June area forum, but I did watch it on YouTube. and there was a presentation on the action plan and things that residents, subjects and topics that residents might want to have included. And I did submit one, which I know Christine is very close to Christine Dywell's heart, and to lots of residents' associations, where we've been asking for many years for comments submitted in response to planning applications to be made public on the planning portal, which is what happens in many other boroughs. The can has usually been kicked down the road. We've been dismissed. There's never been a long debate or discussion about it. GDPR has been used as an excuse very often, but if you use the wording that Ealing Council use, that overcomes the problem. So I asked for that to be put on the action plan. There's nothing on the agenda today about the action plan and about that particular issue being included. You know, it is one that we've been asking since April last year. Well, we've been asking for years, but it was something that we raised in April last year when the new planning portal was presented to us, more or less as a fait accompli, even though we had been asking for a number of years to be consulted about the planning portal. So this is one item that I really would like to have on the agenda. I know it's supported by our ward councillors and probably by many ward councillors in the borough, but the council seems to be intransigent on this one, and it is something that I really would like to continue to be discussed, to be raised and discussed at length, by whether we need a separate meeting. We've been waiting for a year and a half. I couldn't see any other way. I asked for it to go on the action plan here. So if this is something, please, that can continue to be put on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. We've made a note of that, and we'll try to...
Sorry, Chair, can I just add something in on that? Just because,
Yes.
sorry, for those of you that don't know me, I'm the Community Development Manager. So my team, I've got seven place-based officers that are responsible for organising the area forums. Barbara and I had a chat prior to this forum. I picked up the email quite late with the questions, apologies. We will work together to explore how we can get that onto an action plan. Based on the discussion that we had, I think the suggestion of meeting with the councillors in support of that would be a really good first step. So yeah, it's in progress, we're doing what we can, and we'll report back. But yeah, thank you for raising it with me, and hopefully we can get it sorted. Thanks.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, I can see at least 4 hands up, 5. Okay, so yeah, if you start there.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the Isleworth Society. We submitted a response, a very detailed response to Hounslow's action plan last November. And I have just written to the council again to ask if we could have an acknowledgement to that response, because it was never acknowledged. And we understood that from that there was to be a public inquiry, and we would like to be part of that. So I'm awaiting a response.
Okay, we will have to find out. So we'll make a note and ask. Thank you. Because nobody knows about that. No. Okay, not to worry. Thank you. Councillor Strata.
Christine's right, but I did know your letter, Janet, and I will. You should get at least a response to acknowledge it, and I'll chase that one for you.
Okay. Next question, lady in pink.
Thank you. So I attended the last area forum and I raised a question. I think I wasn't the only one. There was a nice presentation about the Thriving Communities Fund, and there was an action that was minuted for Halima Hussain to look into availability of decision-making analysis specifically for the grant of £200,000 awarded to the Isleworth Bowling Club. Now, Ms. Hussain has spoken to me following the meeting, and she said that she's unable to provide this information. And I think it is, as an action from last meeting, I would like to know what the next steps are. This is a significant amount of money compared to the other initiatives that received the grant, which in addition should have a higher level of scrutiny, given that Councillor Sampson has declared her employment at the Bowls Club as one of the interests that she's registered.
So, Councillor Shaheen?
Yes, I mean, Christine and Vanessa have emailed us about the same issue, and that is being looked into, and a response will be given. Christine, Vanessa, you've already had an initial response. I believe there will be further forthcoming from Martin, and he will follow up. It is being looked into by officers, not by councillors, and that is exactly the proper process that should be followed. So I can't tell you when, but hopefully fairly soon. You have requested, no, it's not being looked into by councillors, being looked into by officers. You've requested scrutiny of the Thriving Communities Fund money that has been given to Isleworth Bowls Club. Christine and Vanessa also have emailed us as councillors and officers as well to ask for the same, and that is being investigated by officers.
Okay, next question. Is there anyone who hasn't asked a question yet? The gentleman there.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Just to say, with regard to the current petition by Osterley and White Green Residents Association, the fatal accidents by the main gates of Osterley Park and Thornby Road, there is a current petition which I'd be grateful for everyone to kindly look into and hopefully sign. I have also submitted a petition also with regard to traffic calming for Jersey Road and Alderney Avenue, which gained support of 110 signatures. So, as I say, hopefully that is something that the council and officers will be seriously looking into to avoid any more fatal accidents. It's a tragedy that happened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, that was my auntie.
Very sorry to hear that. But any further questions? Christine.
In the minutes of the June meeting, there are 9 actions. When are we going to... We've just heard the answer to one of them on thriving communities, but other ones I'm particularly interested in are that it said Tom Bruce to look into the wider use of telephone numbers on leaflets so that people who aren't digitally minded can actually contact the council. It says Councillor Smith is to share the updates on the planning portal. And just a reminder on that, it was the 7th of April when quite a few of us people involved with planning for our associations had confirmation that issues about the portal had been raised with Northgate, who operate it. We didn't, despite asking for updates, it took until the 2nd of July to get an answer from Matthew Rees apologising and saying he would ask Northgate where we stand. I'm assuming Hounslow pays their bill. I don't see why he should have taken that long. But even since then, and we're now in October, we are still waiting for an answer to all the issues we raised.
We have answers to some of the questions, but as it's now getting quite late, I don't really want to go through all of them. I can tell you that all the phone numbers that you've asked for are now on the Let's Talk website. They've been added, and that we have an officer assigned to deal with the planning portal issues that you've raised. I've got.
Well, ideally, if the councillors are available, we'll have a chat and a debrief, find out who we can have a conversation with. I noted down the councillors you mentioned that said that they supported the idea. I think I saw some councillors nod over there. Yeah, let's have a conversation and then see what conversations have transpired with planning. That update will then go to the committee clerk and the chair, which will be included in any follow-up minutes, I presume. And then we'll see exactly what the stated position is, and if there's a loggerheads, then that's a political discussion to be had, and presumably the councillors to keep the forum updated. Is that okay if we have a meeting in the next week or so? Yeah? Yeah, I'm going to try and get them next week, yeah. Yes, but yeah, we're going to try and get them next week. This is the first we've heard of it, my team.
Councillor Lukey, did you want to say something?
Not specifically on the planning, but at a previous meeting here, when I chaired the, I'm glad I'm not particularly chairing this anymore, but we did have a meeting with Vanessa Smith and Christine Dywell and Dominic West with Ben Knowles, the director of. Now I know. No, well, hang on. It's an associated question. If you just listen, please. We did go through a lot of communication stuff with the director of with the director, and including the telephone numbers and other ways of keeping in touch with people. So if you can refer to that as well when you do have the meeting with your colleagues at the council. Ben Knowles, ask him to get back to you on that as well, on a range of things, Christine. All right. There's a load of other stuff there. No, there's a load of other stuff on the minutes. Okay.
Do we have any more questions before we move on? How long have we got? Yes. Sorry. Okay. So the lady on the end with her hand up, if we start there.
This is a question for Councillor Shaheen. It's about the Waterman's Arts Centre, which obviously people in Isleworth use as well. I think at the last Brentford Area Forum, Councillor Dunn had offered to set up a meeting because some significant things have happened. In particular, it's gone through planning, I think, revised planning, which would mean there'd be no cinema. It would be a smaller footprint, so it would be something less than perhaps was originally envisaged. And I understand as well that there will be a procurement exercise. and obviously the council will need to specify its requirements, so about getting people's views on, what those requirements might be. So is there a date for that meeting, and also what are your views on the sort of scaling back of the original proposals?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, it's one I'm very invested in. It is worth noting that planning doesn't come under me, but obviously the arts does. So I've been very much invested in trying to see this arts centre through. There have been many setbacks in the course to it, but we are making progress towards it now, which is great because the planning application has gone in for the new site, and it does require changes to the previous planning application. The reason is, in the post-Grenfell world we live in, it requires a secondary stair core, which reduces the usable space for an arts centre. Also, the material conditions of the area have changed. There is a new cinema right by it. I believe even the original Hounslow Arts Trust organisation who had put in, their original bid, have accepted that their plans for a new arts centre, should they be accepted as the provider in that place, would have to change. And also we have decided, as you rightly point out, we have decided that we want to put it out to an open tender. So we will be taking bids not just from Hounslow Arts Trust, but we'll be inviting bids from various other organisations in the hope that we get the right offer for the community. And that does involve listening to what people want. Absolutely does involve listening to what people want. It's in parallel to that, we've also been consulting on our emerging culture strategy, and that will be coming forward fairly soon. And that has involved workshops and surveys with cultural providers, cultural producers, and residents as well, to get a feel for what people in different locales within Hounslow, including Brentford, because I do see Brentford as a key asset within the cultural network of Hounslow. So absolutely, I do think we want to hear what residents want to think on what goes in. I think what we're looking at in terms of the arts centre, first and foremost, we're going to see an empty shell delivered to us, essentially. And what goes into that will be determined by, what will the council want, what residents want, what the providers in their bids come forward with. And the providers, of course, will be doing their market research, talking to the public. Absolutely, let's have a public meeting. I'll chat to my colleagues. We haven't set a date for that. But remember that the planning application that's coming forward is not going to determine necessarily what goes into that empty shell. It's going to take a few years to build the arts centre. Once it starts going up, so there's a lot of time to work out what we want to go in there. So don't feel like any decisions are being rushed over who's going to be the provider or what's going to go into it. We want something sustainable. My view, you did ask me what my view is. My view has been that I've used the words before, but I do want to see a national class, world class arts centre. And by that I mean a big enough performance space, a big enough live performance space, and the ambition from a provider who can bring in the acts. And we could be talking about theatre, we could be talking about live comedy, we could be talking about music. Those sorts of that's something that we're really missing in the area. And I would love to see that delivered to Brentford, because that's the sort of thing that's going to pull in people from not just from the local area and from Isleworth as well, but from Chiswick, from Ealing, from Richmond, from Kew, from all across London. Hopefully, and again, I hate to quote Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. If we can build that space and have a provider who's ambitious enough to bring in those acts that are going to bring people, that's how you build an arts centre that's sustainable. The previous arts centre failed. It failed because not enough people were going. It wasn't providing enough of what people wanted to see. So I'm very keen that we get a provider in, and that's why we're going out to tender. That is why we're going out to tender. We want to test the proposals that come from different providers, and we want to make sure they've got the right ideas. And that will absolutely involve finding out from people like yourself what you want to see in that. So I'd be delighted to hear what you want in there.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen.
Could I just say very quickly?
You have to go through the chair. Yes?
Just one.
Yeah, okay, very quickly.
Just, if I could encourage you, I mean, I got the impression from Councillor Dunn, when I saw the recording of that session, that it would happen quite soon, because I think the sooner the better. I mean, hire this space, advertise it, and you'll get your views, and you can move forward. I think sort of almost not need to overcomplicate it, just ask people what they want. And in terms of the old Watermans, I mean, I used to love going with my son to the children's shows, so that provision was really good. Not quite sure what happened there, why it all closed so suddenly. Hounslow itself had a representative on the Hounslow Arts Trust, so they do know what went wrong, and maybe they need to think about that going forward, what could do differently next time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've hopefully spoken quite clearly and as plainly as I can as to what I think went wrong. I don't think the old Waterman's Centre was washing its face in terms of bringing in the money, and that means putting on acts that people want to go and see. I've got 2 young kids, so I hope there's great children's provision in the new arts centre as well. I completely agree with that. At the same time, you've got the costs going up of running an arts centre. So it wasn't. So where the income wasn't there and the costs were going up, that was the problem that they were facing. We've got a new building. Obviously, the costs of running the much more efficient new building when it's built will be lower. And at the same time, we're going out to tender so that we can find a provider, and it could be Hounslow Arts Trust, but they've got to come forward with something a proposal that's going to wash its face. Unlike the old arts centre didn't wash its face, the new proposal has to, and we're going to test that against what's out there in the market. So there are 2 problems that we had, and those are the 2 solutions to answer those problems.
Chair, there are 3 problems. There was a massive cut in Art Council funding by the previous government and their coalition partners during austerity. So let's not forget that. All right, they cut it to 0 at Waterman's and for the Arts Trust there.
But that may be because it was too heavily reliant on government funding.
No. It was across the board. If you look at arts,
Thank you.
If you look at arts funding, it was across the board slashed in about 2017. If you look at it.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. I think we need to move on. Okay, if you want to continue this conversation maybe afterwards. Thank you, Councillor Leakey. Okay, I think there were 2 hands up. If they're very quick, we might have time to hear them, but if we carry on this conversation, we won't get any more questions. So yeah, the lady in pink and the lady next to her, I saw had their hands up.
Thank you. I just want to get my question in. It might be to the Hounslow Highways. Is there any updates on the question that I had last time around the crossing on the Osterley Road at the junction with the Grove? I understand, Councillor Chandri, there was a meeting with the officers in August. Is there any plans to move forward?
I sent you an email. I CC'd you into that email as I CC'd anyone else who was interested. And the update is that officers are looking to see what they can do technically. And then once they come back with a proposition, I can share that.
Do we have a timeline for that?
I wish I did have a timeline for when they're going to come back. But as I mentioned in the email, the officers are, there's a reduction of officers in the traffic team, and also funding, as we all know, so we're just waiting on that to come back. But as soon as I hear back, I'll let you know. I'm happy to follow up this week to see if I can get a timeline on it.
Also, I don't know why, but I didn't receive an email. Would you be able to resend it to me?
I'm sure I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury.
I just wanted to invite the councillors for my word, if they can have a look in the morning at how the traffic conditions are on Heath Road and the adjacent roads because of the school area that has been implemented. It is dangerous, it is unsafe, and many times there are roadblocks that are going on because of how unsafe people are parking, and because I know people just want to get their kids to school by car because probably they have to get to work afterwards, but it's just not feasible. Many people are being blocked into their driveways by these parents parking. They're not looking when they open their car doors. And it's just the roads that go from Heathrow to Eton Road, they're so small, they're already crammed with cars that are being parked on both ways. There's nowhere to pass. So you've essentially cut the road in two. Now my side of the road has only 2 exits that are possible. So one of them is basically unusable because of all of the parents parking, and then often we can't even get our cars out from our side of the road because of all of the parents that are trying to get their kids to school.
Okay, I think Councillor Raza, you were already going to speak to you afterwards, so maybe if you pick that up as well, is that okay? Thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll bring the open forum to an end and move on to the ward updates and action plans. Do any councillors want to provide any brief updates? No? Okay. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. In which case, I have not been notified of any urgent business, and so the date of the next meeting is the 2nd of February 2026, and it will be here again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And could everybody please complete a feedback form before you leave?